You know, both these diesel heaters from the outside appear to be the same. They're both the same size, the same shape, the same weight. They appear to be made out of pretty much the same materials. They're both 2 kilowatt diesel air heaters. They both run on diesel and 12 volts. But when you look at the price, this HLN is over 4 times the cost of this Vevor heater. Why is that? You know, winter is here and a lot of you are thinking about upgrading your diesel heater on your rig. And right now, money is tight for everyone. So I thought this is a great time to do this test because we're trying to make a decision here. Do I need to spend more on a diesel heater? Is it really worth it? Or is the budget option going to work just fine for me? And are they really different? So, to answer that question, my plan is to strip these down to the bare bones, see what makes them tick, see where they're different. Then we'll put them back together, do a performance test, see how they perform, see how fuel efficient both of them are. And we'll look at the whole picture from what you get in the package, build quality, performance, the electronics that runs it. And then I feel like you'll be armed with enough knowledge to make the proper decision for you. Let's start off with the Vevor and see what you get. You get this manual, you get this 10-liter fuel tank, the unit itself. It's actually packed pretty nice. A fuel pump, and then you get this weird key fob controller combo. Here's the box of accessories. Here's all the accessories. The fan tube, the base plate. You get a muffler, aquarium fuel line, the exhaust pipe, air vent, and you get this heat guard for the exhaust, intake piping, and the wire loom, and then a bag of miscellaneous accessories. Intake muffler, fuel filter. Now let's look at the HLN. The unit itself. You get this very large wiring loom, and you get fuel line with rash guard. See that nylon line goes into the guard and protects it. You get a fan tube. This is your intake tube and your muffler. There's your controller. This is a remote temperature probe. You can mount this elsewhere. This is a remote fuel pump wiring harness. And they don't put the plug on this, so you can actually fish it through a small hole and then put the plug on later. Air direction vent. Comes with a color manual in English for the controller. It's very nice, very self-explanatory, easy to read. Then the installation manual for the heater itself. This is the exhaust pipe with built-in muffler, base plate, fuel pump, and a bag of miscellaneous accessories. HLN gives you a dipper tube versus a fuel tank, which I'm fine with because I'm tapping my bus anyway. Miscellaneous hose clamps and other things you would need to install this unit. Now let's compare the two. The HLN is just so much longer and better protected. Plus, all of the plugs, even the fuse mounting, has a water-resistant O-ring on it. Fuel line. The HLN fuel line is nylon, and it's very kink-resistant. You can try to put a kink in it, and it will twist out versus kinking. Line from the Vevor is more like an aquarium air tube. It kinks very easily. It's very bendable though. You get more internal ducting with the HLN than you do with the Vevor. It's about twice as long, same size though. And the casting on the plastic air direction vent is a little cleaner on the HLN and a little larger. Now onto exhaust pipes, and here is where things get really different. The HLN's about twice as long, again with a built-in silencer. See how thin the Vevor exhaust pipe is? It easily folds over in your hand. The HLN is more corrugated and very difficult to bend. In fact, I even took a hammer to it just to see if I could dent it. And I was able to deform the HLN. It was a lot stiffer and a lot more robust than the Vevor. And now intakes. The silencer on the HLN intake actually has a baffle with foam and several components built into it, while the Vevor muffler just has a thin piece of mesh. I don't know how effective it is. We'll see during the testing. Same situation as the exhaust. The intake for the Vevor is very thin, easily crushable, where the intake on the HLN seems to have like a hard wire wound into it. It's very difficult to crush. Base plates. Now, the base plate on the HLN feels a lot thicker than the Vevor, and there you go. The Vevor is 0.89, HLN is 1.44 millimeters, so it's almost twice thickness. Now, onto the units themselves. They're about the same size, same shape, different color. The end caps here. The HLN end cap is like this hard polycarbonate, while the Vevor is almost like a very flexible ABS. It feels like the lid off of a milk jug. Very flexible. The outer clamshells are pretty much the same with the exception of these safety tabs that the HLN has. The HLN does have an aluminum cover on its main computer, while the Vevor has a plastic. Now here is a difference. The HLN has two plugs, one for the fuel pump and one for the control, where the Vevor has only one plug. Let's take a look at the control modules here. Here's a huge difference right off the bat. All of the plugs on the HLN have this moisture-resistant O-ring to prevent water seeping up into the control module. The Vevor does not. Here is the Vevor control board. Those of you that have more background in electronics could tell me more, but I was told by a friend that the Vevor is a more standard motor control board with less capability than the HLN, where the HLN is a more bespoke board designed specifically for this unit and has more capabilities of sensing and monitoring than the Vevor. Let me know in the comments what you think. I noticed the HLN has electronics on both sides, where the Vevor only has electronics on one side. So take a good look. Please let me know. The end cap on the Vevor was very hard to get off. I think they had like CA glue on it because it was really, really stuck on. It took me like 20 minutes to break it loose. The HLN popped right off, no problem. Here is where the units differ. If you look at the Vevor, it's slightly longer than the HLN. And they're both rated for 2K, but the Vevor is longer. And here's a difference. If you notice, the HLN has a lot more machining on it than the Vevor. The Vevor has these casting remnants, these casting artifacts left on the fins, so it's just not a clean casting compared to the HLN. Here's one here. Notice these marks on the HLN. These are quality control marks where those bolts have been torqued to spec. Both the fan motors are brushless on both of these units. I do believe they are a different motor. This is the Vevor. The construction of the internal burn chamber for both of these units is very, very similar. Materials are where they differ the most. Now, the casting of the heat exchanger, it's fairly clean, but I'm interested to see what the HLN looks like. Here's a difference. The hardware for the HLN appears to be stainless, and the Vevor is more of a black oxide coating. The gaskets on the HLN are also a different color. The Vevor uses a gray, more metallic gasket. Now, if you look at the heat exchanger, you'll notice that the Vevor has approximately 16 fins, and the HLN has 20. So the HLN casting has more heat transfer surface area, and therefore should be a more efficient unit, taking that in consideration. They're about the same weight. They're pretty similar. And now I noticed on this back, this sensor, the HLN has 3 wires going back to that sensor, and the Vevor has 2. I don't know what else it is sensing there, but there is obviously a more complex sensor in that location. Now, the burners themselves, the only difference that I could tell was that the back plate for the HLN was cast. It seemed to be a more monolithic unit where the Vevor was assembled. The fan units themselves were very similar. There were some slight casting differences, but as far as this, I would say this part of the heater is very similar to the other. Now, let's do some testing. I think it's safe to say, and I'll stand by this statement, that all of the accessories and components you get with the HLN heater are of a better quality. And even like the base plate is twice the thickness of the one on the Vevor. So does the base plate thickness matter? Not really, but the fuel line, the rash guard, the exhaust manifold thickness, the mufflers, all that stuff will make a difference. So I think now that we've looked at what you get, let's set these up on the bench and see how they run. I think I'll do the Vevor first, and then we'll do the HLN. I have the 2 kilowatt Vevor mounted to the workbench here. I'm using all of their stock components: stock exhaust, stock fuel line, stock fuel filter. Trying to give this thing the best setup I can possibly give it. And I've primed the pump, but I have not run it yet. We'll be measuring fuel consumption via weight. I have this temperature probe mounted right to the outlet of the hot air. We'll be measuring that throughout the run. And I'll be using my clamp ohmmeter here to monitor power draw. I had previously measured the noise floor in my shop with the garage doors open. It's 41 decibels. I will be monitoring this for noise as well. I've already run into sort of a bit of a snag. The manual is detailed, but it's not user-friendly. Trying to navigate this screen, it was speaking to me in Russian. I got it into English finally, because it does have voice prompts, but the voice prompts aren't required. But problems with this manual are, for instance, it's not written by someone whose English is a first language or even a strong second language. And so you have to do almost process of elimination to see, okay, that is the auto mode, this is the manual mode, because it's not listed as manual mode, it's listed as gear mode. So gear mode is manual mode, and temperature using gear switching is the auto temperature control, so a thermostatic control. And then one sort of thing that's already knocked me off is it mentions a M button. There's only 3 buttons on the remote. There is an on-off button in the middle, and then 2 arrow buttons. I've taken it out of this holder. There is no M. So I've tried to set up the wireless app, and it requires the M button to do that. So yeah, I can't do that as of yet. Let's fire this thing up. I'm going to use the key fob remote. I'm just going to press on. It said start heating. Level 1, let's see what it goes. Turn up to 10. It's got 10 different sort of power levels. I want to take a tape measure, and I want to measure how far I can feel the heat off this running it full. So that's 1 foot, 2 feet comfortably, 3 feet, yeah, I can still feel it. 4 feet, just barely.